Okay, so it's supposed to be at least 12 hours after. This turns out to be 17 hours because I overslept. However, my Biga is still good. Still, if you can smell that it's very fragrant. You can see on the bottom where all the little holes are that the yeast made in the flour. So this is fully fermented and ready to go. So, to drag this out of here onto a lightly floured board so it doesn't stick. This is very sticky. Pat it down, a little more flour, pat it down. I'm going to cut this into 8 parts, or 10 or 6 or whatever. I generally use 8 because it's nice sized chunks to throw in the dough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Now, we start with the dough. Temperature of the dough should be 75 degrees when you're finished. In order to do that, you multiply by 3 to get either 210 degrees or 300. Multiply by 4 because we have a Biga. That gives you 300 degrees minus 72 degrees for the Biga, minus 70 degrees for the flour, minus 70 degrees for the room temperature, which leaves 85 degrees, which is what I have here. 20.4 ounces of water at 85 degrees into the bowl. Then goes the salt, because that goes to the bottom. And the yeast. Broadcast that over the water a little bit. And the wheat germ. Give it a little chance to hydrate. Now, I don't make a big deal out of this. I just mix it up a little bit. It's good enough. The yeast, they tell you to wait till the yeast blooms and all that, but 50 years baking bread, I never had yeast fail me yet. So that's ready. 29.2 ounces of bread flour right in there. Okay. Simplicity itself. Now, the bowl goes on. The dough hook goes in. And off we go on first speed. Look in here. The purpose of the initial mix you'll see on the recipe is just a minute or so to get a shaggy dough. Sometimes the times are not exactly right. You have to look at it. But after it gets a little bit moist, I try to scrape the bowl to get some of that dry flour off the edges so it can get incorporated into the dough. And the trick with the dough is to mix it. Everything in baking is a balance. You don't mix it enough, it won't work properly. You mix it too much, you're mixing the flavor out of it. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just trying to get, now you can see the dough is starting to make a shaggy mass. That's when you start to throw in the chunks of Biga. You don't have to worry about them being absorbed. Just put them in one at a time. They'll mix in pretty quickly. Well, the second reason you mix this enough is to get the gluten activated, which probably is already starting to happen here. It's mixing pretty well. And about halfway through, I lower this to get that ball off the hook and then restart it. That looks pretty good. Now you can see the dough is still sticky. It sticks to my finger. A little flour and rub that off. Okay, so now we're going to put in the olive oil. You want to mix this a little bit more to make sure that gluten is started. Because once you put the oil in, it sort of retards the gluten a little bit. And just drizzle this in. You don't have to be real careful. I just take a little time. Sometimes it gets all gets in there and you don't notice it, but you can see how that ball is now loose in there. It's not really mixing the dough. So you take flour a little bit at a time and just dump it in different sides until the dough starts to get a grip on the ball, and then it'll start mixing again. This, by the way, is the 4 additional ounces of flour that I'm adding now that we didn't put in before. Because sometimes it'll take 3 ounces, sometimes it'll take 5. It all depends on what the dough is telling you. But now it's starting to pick that flour up pretty good. And it's starting to get a little stiffer and a little less. Come down off the hook a little bit. Well, that might be enough flour. I'm checking them in here and see. Okay. Just put a little flour in your hand and pull it off the hook. And now you can test the dough and see how you're doing for tackiness or stickiness. That feels pretty good. See, it's got some strength. It's got some gluten started. And basically, it's got enough flour in it. So we'll start it up again. Now we're going to give it 1 minute on second speed, which is the kneading speed. And every time it climbs that hook, I like to let it down and start again. Keeps mixing better. Test this one more time for how sticky it is. Okay, again, it's tacky. You can see it's got some real strength now. So that's pretty much it. Now, need a bowl. Big enough to hold the dough until twice its size. And you put, oh geez, just a little bit of oil in the bottom of the bowl and slide that around the bowl a little bit. Get it up around the side so that dough can puff up on its own. And we need, the recipe says a spritz of water. Just put your fingers in and spritz the bowl a little bit. The oil and the water make a good combination that really keeps the dough from sticking to the bowl. Now, I'm going to take the dough out of the mixer into that bowl. And press it in. Flip it over. Now both sides are greased. The bottom is loose and the top is a little damp with the oil and water, so it'll rise very nicely. And the reason I had everything pre-measured is it eliminates me doing anything or dumping something in there that's too much or too little or whatever. And that it's not awful, but it's very uncomfortable if you're not sure about that. So if it's all pre-mixed, you can just dump it in and not think about it. That's it. Just cover that, keep it in a nice warm place. Now as it says in the recipe, every 20 minutes for the first hour of bulk fermentation in that bowl, You take the dough out, you put it on a lightly floured surface, and you fold it end to end and side to side. Turn it right side up, dust off whatever flour stuck on the dough, put it back in the bowl. You do that 3 times in the first hour at 20-minute intervals. After the first hour, you let it rest for an hour or 2 or 3, whatever it needs to rise. Sometimes the temperature makes a difference, sometimes whatever, who knows. So you'll feel it as you go along after the hour, and you just have to adjust for whatever comes out of the bowl. Okay, so see you in 20 minutes.